What's going on, Detroit Lions fans? Welcome back in. Steve here, Detroit Den 3-3. Hey, college football's back. All right, that was a nice little holdover that we got over the weekend until we get to the big boys. Thursday night, Friday night Peacock game. But you guys are really here to hear them Detroit Lions and what we're going to be talking about tonight. But I will say this, man, college football's back. It's a great time of year. September is finally here. I'm a Michigan Wolverines fan, and I'll say this: Michigan didn't look good. Michigan State didn't look great. Both teams looked very average. To be nice, let's get to Sunday's game and see these Detroit Lions really show who's the top dog in the state of Michigan. Okay, whether or not you're a Michigan fan, a Michigan State fan, doesn't matter. If you're here, it's because you're a Detroit Lions fan. That's what matters on this channel. So appreciate you guys watching. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Please hit that subscribe button. I'm going to be talking about kind of revisiting some moves that I know have really propelled the Detroit Lions to where they are today. The reason why we're Super Bowl contenders, why we're NFC favorites, why we're one of the teams that's being really talked about in the NFL nationally. Like, we're the fourth best odds to win the Super Bowl. It all started, you guys know, this isn't breaking news. It all started with that Brad Holmes trade of Matthew Stafford. And we're going to go back and we're going to look at some of the players that we acquired. And you guys know the deal. All right, I'm just kind of doing a lead up. This whole week is going to be centered around the Lions and the Rams matchups, things to watch. And I want to get started with revisiting the trade. It makes sense. It fits the narrative for this week. You guys are going to be hearing about it a lot. Why not get it out there and talk about it? So you guys know when we traded Matthew Stafford to the Rams, we ended up getting 2 first-round picks and a third-round pick. We got guys from that trade who are starters on this team. Ife Melifonwu, Jameson Williams, and essentially Jahmyr Gibbs. Right there, those three guys. Ife Melifonwu really came on later in the year last year, played great safety, converted corner. This kid's big. I think he's like 6'2", 6'3". He could really stack in the box and play like a hybrid type linebacker. He looked like a missile when he was blitzing the quarterback. I know he was in Russell Wilson's back pocket all day on that as a Saturday night game on that one. But I really like if he's playing. He had one of the most iconic plays of the season last year with the interception in Minnesota to wrap up the NFC North. Did the skull chant in the end zone. Like, one of my favorite pictures from last year was Ife Melifonwu. Jameson Williams. If you've been watching this channel for more than 6 minutes, you know how I feel about my guy, J-Mo, okay? I think he's electric. He's gone out and said that he wants to lead the league in receiving yards and touchdowns. Bold comment, okay? Bold comment. There's some really, really top receivers out there in this league. I love the confidence. Not sure I can hop on board with that one, J-Mo. You're my guy and all, but I'd like to just see you hit 1,000 yards and we can kind of build off that, go from the future. But if you do, man, hey, no one will be supporting it and cheering for you more than me. So I'm really excited for J-Mo. And then Jahmyr Gibbs, just last year, the rookie, kind of a head scratcher. Everyone was saying in the NFL draft, once we took him, you had people very, very vocal about their opinions on last year's draft, and it ended up being one of Brad Holmes' best. Not on this channel. I gave that draft an A. I really, really loved that draft. I love this past year's draft. That's where Brad Holmes really shines. Okay. So what he does and what he did is he traded Matthew Stafford, saying, you guys don't even know yet that I'm an assassin in this draft. I'm going to take all that capital. I'm going to convert those picks into starters, impact players. Jahmyr Gibbs. A lot of people are comparing him to, I got to be careful. I'm not the one saying this, but I've heard the name Marshall Faulk. I've heard the name. I've heard a lot of other names. I don't like putting player comps out there. It creates a narrative that you're putting pressure on a player, and if he doesn't live up to those expectations, then we turn on him and call it a failure. I don't care if Jahmyr Gibbs gets 800 yards, 2,000 yards. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to see him be a vocal point in this offense, and I think he will be a weapon. I think he's electric. I think he can touch the ball at any point on the field, and it can be turned into a touchdown. That's the kind of player he is. I don't care about yards, stats. I play fantasy football. I'm not hardcore into it like I used to be. My focus on Sundays is purely Detroit Lions. What happens in the city of Detroit on game days. Ask my wife. I'm not a pleasant person if we lose. Okay. I need about 2 or 3 days to kind of get back in a swing where I'm like, okay, starting to feel all right again. And that'll show. Trust me. I mean, we're going to lose a game or two this year. You guys will see it yourselves when I have to come on here and do game recaps. I'll be a different type of Steve if you haven't seen it already. So those are the three big names that we got from the trade, but from the Matthew Stafford trade. But you could kind of make an argument that there's a sleeper out there that we also got in the Matthew Stafford trade. And just because he wasn't involved directly in the trade, Aiden Hutchinson, selected number 2 overall after we trade Stafford to the Rams and we get Goff. Goff's on the team. We go 3-13-1, receive the number 2 overall pick. I don't think we're in that boat if Matthew Stafford was the starting quarterback on the Detroit Lions. And I'm not knocking Goff. You guys know me. Jared Goff's my guy. But I do think Matthew Stafford, it can account for a couple more wins. And I don't think we get Aiden Hutchinson if Stafford's on that 2021 team. So I think we could kind of make an argument that though he may not be tagged directly to the trade, he was a product of that trade, if that makes sense to you guys. We might not have picked number 2. We might have picked number 6, 7, and I don't know who went in the draft that year in that area, but we probably would have been somewhere in that ballpark. All right. Matthew Stafford can go out and win a couple games. And just to kind of put a cherry on top of that topic before I move on to the next one, here's a list or a picture of Matthew Stafford versus Jared Goff's numbers. Pretty even. As you can see, Goff has more games played. So obviously he's going to have more touchdowns, less interceptions, higher quarterback rating. The record is kind of about the same. So if you want to look at it from just the quarterback's perspective and not tie in any trades, you could say that it's close. It's a coin flip, depending on which stat you value more. I don't know, but the Rams won a Super Bowl. All right, they still won that trade. I can't say that they didn't. The Rams made a move to put themselves over the hump and to get to the Lombardi Trophy and have their parade, be the Super Bowl champs, all the rings, the banners, banner nights, opening night of the NFL. They got all that and they deserve it. They won the trade. Now, if the Detroit Lions go out with Jared Goff and win a Super Bowl, I'll flip that opinion and I'll say that the Detroit Lions won the trade. But there's another move that Brad Holmes made, and you guys are pretty familiar with this one a little bit more recently. When we traded TJ Hockenson to the Minnesota Vikings a couple years ago, and how those draft picks and that compensation for that trade worked out is, again, long story short, we took some of those draft picks and there was some mixing and matching with some draft day trades. But essentially, long story short, like I said, we walked away from drafts with Hendon Hooker and Broderick Martin. Okay. Like, Broderick Martin is a player that we're really high on, a player that looked good in preseason and training camp. Not an all-pro player. He's not as big as the other 3 guys that I mentioned with the Stafford trade, but he could be. We use that term project. How long does a project player take? He could be good to go this year, or it might be one more season. We don't know. And then Hendon Hooker. He's obviously been the talk of the town pretty much since, I would say, maybe the draft, because we kind of knew that we were going to see a lot of Hendon Hooker in preseason and training camp. So Hendon Hooker is another piece that's kind of a quote unquote project. So we don't really know what we got from that trade. But the biggest piece, and again, this player might not be directly tied to the Hockenson trade. We don't draft Sam Laporta if we have TJ Hockenson on the team. So that's an upgrade there. All right. And real quick, I'm going to share my thoughts on TJ Hockenson and Sam Laporta. I wasn't in love with the pick when we drafted TJ Hockenson. I was still scarred from Ebron. And I could say the same thing about Sam Laporta. I was still scarred from Ebron. Like, that dude messed me up emotionally as a Detroit Lions fan, if I'm being honest. But I will say this, TJ Hockenson did play his way into being one of my favorite players while he was with the Detroit Lions. And when we traded him, I was a little upset. He went to a division rival, but we got a good haul from it. I did not want to see him get injured last year. The whole Kirby Joseph thing, I'm not going to get into that today. Dirty hit. I don't get into that. And you know me, I don't cheer for injuries. It takes away from the competition of football. I want the best players out there. If we're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, it means a little bit more to beat Patrick Mahomes than it does Carson Wentz, doesn't it? I want to beat the best of the best. I want to have that bragging right against whoever I know that's a fan of the Chiefs or whatever team we're playing that week. So going back to the Sam Laporta and the Hockenson trade, Hockenson's, again, he's just like that Hutch trade with Stafford. He's not directly tied to it. His name's not linked, but with how our roster was shook up, I don't think we have Sam Laporta. And I think right now, I think Sam Laporta is a top 3 tight end in this league, okay? I'd say he's right behind Travis Kelce. I'd probably put him at number 2. And there's some really good young tight ends coming up in this league. I think Kyle Pitts is slept on. I'm not saying he's better than Laporta or even in the top 5. But if I had to say it, Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta, you guys can fight through for 3 through 32 on where you want to rank them. I don't care. But I think that's my order. So Sam Laporta, another player that not tied to the trade, but we don't draft him. And when we drafted Sam Laporta a couple years ago, I still had that fear from Ebron. Sam Laporta, all he did was go out and have one of the best rookie tight end careers or seasons in NFL history. Like, the dude was on fire last year. Probably one of my favorite offensive players to watch. So, guys, I think that Brad Holmes has really maneuvered this team in a phenomenal way, and we're gearing up for an excellent season. These trades that he's done has given us not just starters, but Pro Bowlers, okay? We've gotten Jared Goff, who's turned the city around. Jahmyr Gibbs, an electric player. Like, I mentioned a lot of names today. I'm not talking guys that sit the bench and play 5-6 snaps a game. I'm talking guys who are getting on the field and making a difference. That's the kind of moves that Brad Holmes has made. And those are just the trades that he's made. Those are just the people that have been kind of somewhat involved in those trades as well. When we break down the whole draft and people he's drafted with our own draft picks, he's hit home runs there too. So, like I said, this whole week is going to be geared toward Rams, Stafford, Sean McVay. We're going to be talking all things Rams and Lions this week. So if you have any questions leading up to game day, drop it in the comments, hit that like button, stick around. I'll be back later with another show.